Hello, everyone. Welcome to my very first episode of Mind, Body, and Spirit. And I am so excited because I have my mini me. This is my daughter, Rose, and
Oh.
she was so kind to come on and be my first guest. So I'm super excited to have her here. I want to say hello to everyone.
Hi everyone, my name is Rose. Like my mom said, I'm her daughter. But yeah, really happy to be here.
Yes. I'm grateful for her to be here because she's going to kind of share with us today, talking about mental health and how it's important for our young people. And having gone through the pandemic, right? That wasn't a great time for anyone, but especially for her age group, I feel like you guys have been through a lot.
Plenty.
Yes, I mean, my poor baby, she was in my tummy when 9/11 happened.
Oh.
So I remember that was, I had a really scary incident with that and being under a lot of stress. And then coming after 9/11, it's like you've grown up in schools and having to do these drills for an active shooter. You've seen so much happen in this world where it's just completely fallen apart. And it's almost become very normal. It's become almost normalized for you, which is very sad. And then we had the pandemic, and that completely shifted a lot of different things for everyone. So, you were the class of 2020. There was no prom, no uh
Graduation.
graduation,
Yeah.
like all the it just felt like it just keeps piling and piling. So you are going to share about you as well, but you collectively you're going through something with all these people that are your age group. So if
Mhm.
you want to share a little bit about that and um what how do you feel about all of that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to start, I like to say my generation we're around like we're a weird mix because we're not too far after, your 90s babies, but we're not too far into the 2000s too. So we like to kind of consider ourselves our own little generation. So that's from like 1998 to we'll say like 2002, where we still had, some of that real world stuff that kept us in touch. And then we were also right there when the boom of technology happened with iPhones and everything. So it's a very special generation, a very close generation. And like you said, we've seen a lot, we've experienced a lot. And in a sense, it is almost like a form of a desensitized generational trauma that we all share. Like I said, I was born in 2002, so I was born into the world pre or sorry, after 9/11.
Mhm.
Um, and so obviously things were changing, like the way of life that we lived, we weren't living anymore. And so growing up, unfortunately, our world was changing to a more violent, unsafe world during that time, or as it became more apparent in the media. But for me, yeah, I remember growing up in schools experiencing active shooter drills. They actually called them like red apple alerts. I was in like kindergarten doing this.
Mm.
And they were all, precautionary stuff, but it's just all kind of like procedures and drills that we had to grow up with. And especially with COVID, when that hit, that was honestly something that none of us saw could have or thought that could ever happen. So it was definitely something really difficult to go through. But I felt alone, but I didn't feel alone because everyone that I knew was also experiencing at least similar feelings, but we're all in the same situation together. So it really collectively, I guess, helped us grow. And at the same time, collectively gave us like a shared trauma of sorts.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you shared a video with me. It was during the pandemic time, and just showing me how a lot of kids have kind of separated themselves from all the trauma, the pain, everything that they're going through. And it's almost kind of like on TikTok, you've all created this community, right? Where you can,
Mm-hmm.
the people they check in, they share their loneliness, their feelings, the depression. I mean, there's like a whole slew of different
Yeah.
things that you're all experiencing.
Yeah, TikTok was definitely, I feel like, a key tool that we utilized during the pandemic. TikTok first started emerging. Well, it's not necessarily anything that's new for my generation. We've always had those short, couple second videos, but this was a platform that was a lot more interactive than anything we've seen before.
Hmm.
And it first kind of like came into the picture when I was a senior in high school pre-COVID. And wasn't that big, but during quarantine, many kids they were alone. Like they didn't have anyone to talk to. They couldn't see their friends. And aside from all your other social media platforms, this was something that you can entertain, create, and then also share and educate, which was something that was a big tool that was like utilized during the pandemic, was during the riots and during like that Capitol raid and stuff like that. All of this information was shared through TikTok, and this is how mainly my generation communicated our feelings towards it and also educated others on it. There are many great creators on that app as well that have honestly become activists or have really done actually really monumental things to speak up for a lot of the injustices we saw during the pandemic. And again, it was a way for kids like me to talk about what we were experiencing, as many of us collectively were enduring like mental illness and a lot of other symptoms that come from struggling and being isolated. So it was a nice platform to let others know that, you're not alone and that we're all collectively going through this together. And another great kind of use of this app was the comment section.
Hmm.
Many kids felt that they were able to relate to others in the comments because it just added on to the video that you saw. So someone can share their own personal life story that reminded them of this video, and you have like 100, 200 comments of kids being like, same thing happened to me. So it's very nice to see something like familiar or like know that you're not alone.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. I also love the power of the collective there. I remember, was it one of the Trump rallies, and they went and they bought up all the tickets or something like that for one.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of cool little like witty stuff like that, or just like kind of like group, it seems like pranks and jokes that people are able to kind of like do just to, keep things a little lighthearted. But yeah, like I said, there was a lot of like activism that actually came from that app. And like my generation, I feel like we've always just been kind of tied to politics and what's going on in the news because there was always something going on in the news. I mean, I can remember
Mhm.
the numerous amounts of school shootings I heard, and it really wasn't anything new to me because I've been hearing about this since I can remember, probably like 8, like, or whenever like Sandy Hook, I think that was the first school shooting I heard about. So hearing about such a tragic thing at such a young age and seeing continuous acts of the same thing really just kind of like desensitizes you. It's the fact. But
Yeah, and that's really sad. I mean, I really thought at that time of Sandy Hook, I thought, "Oh, okay, these are babies. They're actually going to do something about this." And when nothing was done, I was like, all is lost. It really is, because if you're not gonna do something to help these little ones, what who's to say they're gonna help anyone else? And it's so sad that now this is just a part of our society. Like, why do we need to accept this? It's unbelievable to me, and I think that's probably one of the scariest thing as a parent. And I highly encourage parents to get into conversations with your kids, have these conversations, see where are they going for their support. I mean, I know that you can come to me or
yeah.
your father, if you need that support, but it's also nice to have that support around people your own age as well. But so yes, know what's going on with your child, because there's so much, and I just don't know how. I commend you, and I really praise you for your perseverance through
Thank you.
these difficult times, because I know it's been a lot. And proud of you for saying, you know what, I need to take a break when you needed to take a break.
Yeah.
You know.
No, most definitely. I was going to say another thing too for parents to kind of do if you have someone who is of like the teenage years or is active on social media is really just when you do go to that child to talk to them, it's not necessarily for you to understand, it's for you to listen, and coming from like a non-judgmental place. Because I mean, I can bet there are a bunch of things I shared and you didn't quite get or understand, yet you were still there to listen. And I didn't feel like that combative relationship that most kids do have with their parents when it comes to sharing stuff like that. And like you had said, like having that relationship helped me really be able to like communicate with you what I'm going through. Because when I graduated senior year, obviously midst of COVID, and that was also my freshman year of college. When
Yeah.
I went for the fall, COVID was still going strong. So it wasn't the college experience I thought of or dreamed of for my whole educational
Yeah.
career. Not something, you know, I thought was ever going to happen. Coming of age movies definitely did not prepare me for that one.
Mhm.
So it was really difficult. It was very isolating. Everyone always told me that college, you know, these are the best, you know, years of your life and you're going to make all these friends. And how are you going to do that if I have to stay in my room all the time and take online classes where no one has their camera on, no one's really interacting, and that's just because we're very much used to just being isolated. No one knows how to communicate or really necessarily socialize anymore. So it was a big challenge, and that's why I decided, for me, during my second semester, I noticed a big decline in my just motivation for schoolwork, and I noticed that there was just a bunch of stuff going on with me mentally, and I just felt like it was hard to seek help at that time and also focus on school and make sure I'm not doing too bad in school. So that's when I made the decision, you know, it's time to step back a little bit, get the help that I need, prioritize that. While school's always going to be there, you know, my mental health might not always be great. So let's prioritize that one and take care of that first.
Yeah. No, I was proud of you for saying that, and you became an advocate for yourself and saying, "You know what? I just need a moment. I need to take a step back." So, yes, listen to your kids, everyone. You know, if they're going through something or they just, or if they kind of feel a little pull away in some way, just check in. Like,
Mhm.
you know, how's it going? And, you know, Rose, one thing I share with people that I say that I try to practice. I know sometimes I have that mom role come in, but you know, I try to remember to ask you when you're sharing something with me, do you want me to listen
Mhm.
or do you want my opinion?
Yeah.
And there's been times where you said both. No, I just need you to listen today. And I'm like, okay. And it's hard. Parents, I get it. I understand. Because I'm sitting
Mhm.
there like, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. And I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, just breathe into that. I'm just here to listen.
Mhm.
Because as a parent, we want to fix, we want to help, but sometimes you just need that person to listen to you with what you
Yeah.
want to vent, right? Everybody wants to vent sometimes, and you don't want anybody to tell you anything. You just want to get it out. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
no, most definitely. And I feel too that there has always been this stigma around, you know, teenagers opening up to their parents or just parents not understanding, you know, teenagers nowadays and their social media and all that. And I feel like this stigma has actually become really damaging to a lot of relationships between kids and their parents, because I know many friends of mine who are honestly really scared to go to their parents to ask them about serious stuff, because now, especially that kids around my age, we're about 20, we're going on to 21, we're experiencing a lot of real life situations that unfortunately aren't always the best. And you really are going to want to, you know, run back to your mom. It's like a little kind of child instinct of, I'm really going through something, I want to talk to my mom. But some people can't. Their parents have just really come at them with a really combative mindset, or trying to fix them, or trying to enforce what they believe is best for their child's situation. And that eventually is just going to push that kid away and keep them isolated, not wanting to say anything. So it's definitely important just to make those small steps of communicating with them, letting them know, you know, do you want me to listen or do you want me to give you advice? And again, it's not something for you to understand. Again, there's generational gaps, there's different,
Mhm.
the society is different from, what it was back then. So
Yeah.
there's lots and lots of or additional pressures that many people are facing
Yeah.
nowadays. Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing, and this is for any situation, doesn't have to be your child, it could be a, friend or a coworker. It's about trying to meet people where they are
Hmm.
and understanding where they are, at this present time, and just to have that space and empathy, having empathy for that individual to be able to really get that dialogue going and to
Hmm.
open up to that. Um, I had a thought and I just totally forgot what I was going to say. I don't know, maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah, it's important to have that dialogue and keep it going and just meet people where they are. Like you said, you don't have to understand. There's plenty of things, and now my thought has just come back. So, me growing up, I remember how it was for me growing up, and I think social media, right? We'll talk about that in a second because I think social media has such a huge impact on things. Because when I was growing up, we didn't have the phones or anything. We didn't when stuff was happening in the world, if it wasn't on the news, we didn't know about it. So there was a lot we did not know, and in a way, I think that sheltered our mindset. It helped us to not plug in so much to what was going on in the world, and so we didn't have this stuff feeding at us all the time, and life was a little more carefree, there was stuff that happened for sure. I've seen stuff,
Sure.
experienced things, right? I'm not saying it was all,
Sunshine and rainbows. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, it was very, but it was different. It was
Hmm.
different.
It was a different
So,
time. Yeah.
yes, now I'm looking at you. Like, just today, I, noticed that there was, so this is pre-recorded, everyone, so when this airs, this has already happened, but today, the, earthquake in Turkey, a 7.5 earthquake in, Turkey and Syria, and I don't know how many deaths. I saw a building fall, and it was just I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't," I'm just feeling, there's this feeling of helplessness when you see all these things around the world that are happening, or even here just in the United States, all the killing of, of Black men that are being killed, and, we're having to see that, the video footage of that stuff, and just all these different violences. Now that with the shootings too, we get bits and pieces of that. So you guys are constantly being fed all of this information
Mhm.
and absorbing it. It's a lot. After a while, like for me, I can't look at a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
after a while.
I mean, again, just being that I was born in 2002, and like I said, we had that before, but we also had that after with the emergence of technology.
Mhm.
So, bad news was honestly always around growing up, whether I wanted it or not. If I wanted to hear about it, it really wasn't my choice. I was going to see it at some point. And obviously that's really hard to deal with. I'm not saying that it doesn't affect me in any way, but it's when you have such an overload of negativity and just real sadness and real injustice that you see going on in the country, it's really, really hard to take on all that at once and carry all
Mhm.
that weight on you. And so it's not necessarily the healthiest thing, but a lot of my generation is used to suppressing a lot of their emotion. But at the same time, social media being a blessing and a curse, that also allows for a platform for people to stay connected, to get help, to,
Mhm.
share how they feel about the situation. And again, the negative though of social media is that it can perpetuate fake news. It can, perpetuate the situation and constantly put negativity into your like news feed or anything that you're seeing. But I know for me, it's when I see these headlines, obviously there's a place in me that has empathy, for these losses or for any losses that may have occurred. But at the same time, for my mental sake, I try to not really look at details too much.
Mhm.
just to keep my mental health in check.
Yeah.
But at the same time, still sending, love and peace to those that have that or that were affected by the situation. But again, growing up with all this, it's nothing new for me. It's nothing new to hear. And it's a continuation of, I would say, ever since I was born, the violence that we see. And speaking of the violence, though, I just wanted to say you had reminded me, because of all the violence I saw, that I feel like really pointed me in the direction of my major, which is criminology, and my minor being ethnic studies. Since I grew up seeing all this stuff, it was really disheartening to be like, why is no one working on it? Why is no one doing anything? We're talking about it a lot, but what's actually happening? Nothing. And so obviously that was made pretty prevalent to my generation. And so that's why I chose to go into the field of criminology, and eventually it'll be like restorative justice, to really find laws and policies and regulations that will lessen the amount of occurrences we have, because there is no one solution to end it all. It's
Mhm.
human nature, and I'm taking a violence class, which I just came back from, but violence is inevitable, and it's how we lessen it, and the different, because there's not just one factor to it. It's multiple factors, multiple sides that we need to come in and look at and theorize about. But yeah, that's definitely, I would say, a reason why I chose the field that I want to go into, is really just finding a way. How can we change again for the
Yeah.
better?
Yeah. And I love that you wanna do that. You've always held a special heart, a place in your heart of wanting to help people. I remember when you were little and you would see the homelessness
Yeah,
issues, and, there was a blank building, a empty building that
I
wasn't far
remember.
from here. And you were like, "I'm gonna buy that building, and I'm gonna turn it into a hotel for all the homeless people." And you were
Yeah.
always wanting to take care of those, that were, misfortunate, and I just love that about your spirit, and, yeah, you're gonna do very well in that field, so,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, to add on to that too, I mean, not only did I see violence being perpetrated through news, but I also grew up in a community, not saying it was extremely violent or anything, but I did grow up in a community where there were a lot of injustices,
Mhm,
especially with poverty levels. We saw a lot of homelessness being in Los Angeles. I mean, that's not anything new to any LA natives or anyone who lives in Los Angeles, but seeing it from where it was as a kid to where it is now, it's
mhm.
extremely just heartbreaking to see how worse it got throughout the years and how bad it was. But no, definitely that little memory. I just remember looking and being like, why isn't anyone helping these people? We're talking about it again, like, oh, we're gonna open up a homeless shelter, but because of certain policies and protests, that they're not going to open it in this area. And so here we are again with the same problem. But yeah, there's always been that part of me for sure where I just want to help create solutions, because we're talking about it, but no one's creating a solution.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done for
For
sure,
sure.
so
Yeah, it's not going to be solved by my generation. I definitely don't want to preach that, but it's all about taking those initial steps, those smaller steps into, like I said, there's so many different varying factors into a lot of the violence and everything we see in the news. So it's not like there's just one instant fix and it's going to happen like that. It's going to take, unfortunately, possibly decades to reverse and fix and solve and, move past a lot of the pain everyone's endured. But it's just with those little steps, it definitely is possible.
mhm. What are some of the things that people of your generation, what do they do? Like, what would you consider is a way to find peace in all of this madness?
Hmm. Great question. If you were to ask, honestly, a lot of people of my generation, um, it kind of switched for us, especially because of COVID. A lot of people are used to being isolated. And for me, being an introvert a little bit, that honestly kind of helped nurture my soul,
Mhm,
and helped me grow as a person. I spent a lot of alone time, and not just like alone time, like I'm gonna, do this and that, but like actually getting to know myself and really just spending that quality, like I mean quality time with yourself, as if like you were treating a friend, and it's really
Mhm.
befriending yourself at the end of the day, because sometimes pandemics happen, sometimes we are forced to be alone, and that can feel lonely, but it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
So, and especially again with all these injustices and sad news in the media, it's sometimes easy to feel alone, but you're not alone. And that's where, being for yourself really comes into play. And just being there for yourself emotionally, mentally, physically. Yeah,
Mhm.
all that factors into it.
Yeah, it's important. It's important. I think I talk about self-care because it is important. That's the reason why I made this show Mind, Body, and Spirit, because it's about us taking care of all of it, the full package. So there's different
Mhm.
things that we should do for ourselves, and it's a very, very important, especially
And
with everything going on.
along with that isolation, though, too, I will say sometimes gets a little easy to be by yourself. But
Mhm.
if you are feeling, a certain way, and you, have that support system within yourself, but you're still looking for that support system, it's very good to communicate how you're feeling, share with someone you trust how you're feeling, what you're going through, just because they might have an understanding. You just don't know what someone else is going through.
Right.
And so with the appropriate person, and someone that you trust, it can actually be really freeing to get what's off your chest. And I mean, for me, I was, like talking to my friends, but after a while I still felt like that wasn't enough. I mean, not saying my friends didn't do great at like counseling me, but at the same time, I didn't want my problems just to be what our friendship revolved around. And so that's when I switched and was like, I'm gonna go get mental help. And I saw a therapist and a psychiatrist, and actually these people were really beneficial to me, and they were there to listen without judgment. And I feel like that's the most important part that many of us lack, is that judgment free, ear that
Yeah.
someone can lend and like really listen to you and make you feel understood. um
Yeah.
yeah, that's the best part for sure.
Would you've noticed that in this day and age that we're moving away? I know when I was growing up, to see a therapist or to see anyone that offered mental health help, that there was such this stigma to that. And I
Hmm.
feel like it's kind of loosening up more, would you say? Or is it still, do you feel with your age group that that's still kind of a thing? People make that a thing?
I don't think people make that a thing, but because these are all preconceived notions, sometimes people might internally struggle with asking for that help. They might judge themselves and be like, or
Mhm.
no, I can do this, or I don't want to tell this person because I'm afraid of being judged, or I'm not saying the judgment's not out there, but it's unfortunate because a lot of people my age also commit suicide a lot more frequently, and it's again because of that stigma that still stands, that this is that you shouldn't be asking for this stuff, this means you're crazy in the mind, and it doesn't mean that at all. But at the same time, with that stigma still standing, people are dismantling that by just being extremely open and comfortable. The amount of people I know that have seen therapists, or the amount of people I've recommended therapy to that have actually gone and seen a therapist, so it's been really beneficial to them. And I mean, obviously this luxury isn't something that many people can afford, just given our health, uh what is that called, given the medical I don't know, like insurance and stuff like that. I know it's
Oh,
hard for
yes.
people
Uh-huh.
to um get therapy, but at the same time, if it is possible, it's for sure something that's useful. And but to answer your question, yeah, I think my generation is working on dismantling that stigma around
Mhm.
mental health and seeking treatment.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I know within just the US alone, the suicidal rate has gone up a lot.
Hmm.
It just feels that a lot of people in our society, as you mentioned with the insurance, they don't make it easy. they don't make it easy for people to get the help that they need, and
No.
that adds to the problem as well. But it breaks my heart to see how much the numbers have gone up, where people
Yeah.
just are faced with not having any type of solution.
Extremely too after the pandemic, the amount of people I knew. I mean, I'm fortunate so far to have not lost anyone to any mental health kind of crisis, but the amount of people I've known that have lost someone, honestly, in these recent years after the pandemic have, lost their battle to depression or anxiety or, a bunch of these other mental illnesses that, are becoming a lot more prevalent for kids my age, and it's just really hard to deal with and for some to even understand. So that's where I think that first step is really important, like listen to your kids or just
Yeah.
try your hardest. But yeah, it's definitely a really difficult struggle, really difficult to come to terms with. But I try to tell most people, it is a long path, but you will get there, and it is going to take time. It is going to take time. That's the one that I learned. It does take time, not an instant fix.
Right.
One person is not going to solve everything. Might have to go to a couple therapists, but when you truly do find that right one, it makes all that time that you spent worthwhile, and it's going to help you later in time too, to remember like what you learned and stuff like that from those like mental health guidance people. So very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I
Of
appreciate it.
course.
And I wanted to clarify something. I meant to bring it up earlier. So would you consider yourself, I know you said you have like a special age group. Is it the Gen Z is where you fall under? I know you're not.
I feel like
Gen Z.
I mean, I definitely wouldn't say I'm a millennial, but I no shit against millennials, but I don't know, Gen Z, I feel like they gave it so much of a like age range there. So like my little cousin who's 10 years younger than me is Gen Z, and I'm like, we're nothing alike. We had different childhoods.
Right.
Like I was there before the iPhone. You were born knowing like how to use, the phone and stuff. So a lot of people I've seen on TikTok, the lost generation, just because we lost graduation, prom, first freshman year of high school, first freshman year of college. So yeah, lots of stuff there that was lost, and people tend to forget about us sometimes. So yeah, I would say that's probably 1998 to 2002, 2003, sure. But yeah, small little sector, because like I said earlier, we experienced kind of like two worlds there, because I remember going outside and and then when I come back, like programming the VCR to record my TV show. But I was also in the same generation of streaming and all these streaming services, but I also remember CDs, like tapes and all that. So we really did get the best of both worlds, which I'm really grateful for. So yeah, I'll say lost generation for now.
All right, cool. All right, any last words or anything that you want to share before we close out here?
Honestly, not much, but thank you for having me on.
Well, I think you've shared a lot of great information that hopefully some of our viewers that have kids or even grandkids, to be able to get that dialogue going, because I think it's so important to keep that continued dialogue. And I know one of the things that I really did my best with you growing up as well, for those that have younger kids, is I always told you that no matter how bad it was or how wrong of anything, that you could always come to me and share.
That was really important.
And that I would not judge or punish or I mean, look, there's been times I was not happy, but nothing crazy or anything. But yeah, I think it's important as a parent to create that safe place for kids so that they can come forth and have these conversations. Some of them are really difficult too. It's it's not easy on both sides.
Yeah.
For either one of us, sometimes it can be challenging, but we've gotten through it. So
we have.
It's all good. It's all good. So I'm giving you a big hug.
Love you.
Love you. Thank you for being here and just being honest and sharing and giving us an insight into your world, your generation's world. So
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave us a comment. Let us know if you have any questions or if anything came up for you. That would be great. So in the meantime, be blessed, be well, and be safe. Take care.
Bye.